Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Dividock. I'm the supervisor for the Planning, Zoning, and Land Use Unit within the Planning and Local Business Development Division in Oakland County. Welcome to today's Planners Gathering, online applications and digital submittals for planning, zoning, and building. Just a few reminders, the meeting is being recorded and will be made available on our website. And if you have any questions, please use the chat function in Zoom and direct your question to Jim Schaefer. Jim will moderate a question and answer session after the presentations have concluded. So let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenters today. We have Chris McLeod, Planning Manager for Rochester Hills. And from the City of Ann Arbor, we have Hank Kelley, Deputy Planning Manager. We have Lisha Tolbert, the Building and Rental Services Manager. And we also have some other staff, support staff from their IT department and public services. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Get you over to. All right. So can you see my screen, Ryan?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So thank you, everyone, for attending today. With me as well is Mike Byzenko, our Building Ordinance and Facilities Director. As I say, he is obviously on the building ends of our permit intake. But I'm going to start off by talking about the first part of the process, obviously the planning process. No disrespect to Mike, but I always think that this is the most important part of the process. But anyway, the City of Rochester Hills onboarded Bluebeam and PZ&E, which is obviously the extension of BS&A, about 2019. And an idea of trying to be more innovative. The city is always trying to push forward. So obviously in the planning and building and engineering realm, PZ&E and as well as Bluebeam was the next iteration of pushing forward. The idea obviously is always to try to bring collaboration and bring our reviewers together in the process. So that way we're not independent when reviewing. Everyone always talks about trying to break down silos. And this is another way of trying to do that within our organization. To make sure that we're collectively reviewing plans and providing the best feedback and the best commentary that we can for each one of those plans, and an idea to make sure that our customers, our applicants, the people coming to the city to do business are, again, getting that best message possible. So in 2019, I actually wasn't here. Ironically, Sarah Roediger and the building team that was here at the time came and met with me over in a different city, over in Sterling Heights, because Sterling Heights was onboarding Bluebeam at that particular time as well. But ultimately, I came over to the Rochester Hills side of things, and now we're furthering and continuing our Bluebeam implementation. One of the biggest things, obviously, as you continue to go on with this, is training, making sure that you know exactly what Bluebeam can do and how to utilize it most efficiently and effectively. But it's always important to have a champion. There's always someone in your office, and here it happens to be in the building department, that knows.
The building department.
I always give kudos to the building department when I do, but making sure that you have a champion within one of your departments or within your organization that really carries the torch in terms of that everyone can go to and say, I can't figure this out, or I need to do this, or I'm getting this weird pop-up, or whatever the case is. And like I said, that's always important. But again, the idea is obviously make this all digital, make it efficient, and obviously getting rid of those storage containers and everyone's desks and everyone's cubicles that say, here's all the plans that are being stored. So we want to make sure we're getting rid of all that. So back in the day, obviously everyone's familiar with huge planning reports. Us planners love to make huge reports. We love to be wordy. We love to be, create charts and graphs and tables and all sorts of things. And this is just the planning report. So imagine, obviously, again, the applicant getting 4, 5, 6, 7 of these, depending on the number of departments reviewing things, and then trying to have to make sense of it all. So obviously, Bluebeam brings that all together. Here in the city, we have 8 different reviewers that review site plans simultaneously. So in the myriad of call-out boxes and bubbles and pointers and just general commentary, each one of those are color-coded based on the reviewer doing the plan itself. So we want to make sure, again, that what we're intending the site plan review comments to be are directed directly where they need to go. it's hard to describe, well, on the southwest corner of this particular site, do this, do that, whatever the case may be. It's much easier, obviously, just to redline it essentially on the site plan and say, this is what we're looking for, put it right here. Direct commentary, that way the applicant knows exactly what the intent is. But also being able to really interact with the drawings and being able to flip back and forth and not having a huge ream of paper, or having the not seeing what other people are doing at a particular time and what their comments may be relative to something. Worst case scenario is that one department says do one thing, the next department says do another, then all of a sudden the applicant's calling you saying, how do I figure this out? Bluebeam helps alleviate a lot of those concerns. So again, making sure you're determining who needs to be included within your reviews is always critical. When you send out Bluebeam drawings through the process, you can make that determination whether you have standardized groups or you pick out individually who you want to send it to. You can customize that as you send it through BSNA and PZ&E into the Bluebeam session. Again, you can dictate all that, and it fully makes a history of all that correspondence that goes on behind the scenes. When you're getting started, and for those of you who don't have Bluebeam yet, it is a cost. There's no doubt about it. We allocated about $100,000 back in 2019. We didn't quite spend all that, but the initial cost is a steep one. And then you obviously have ongoing training, ongoing accounts, ongoing licenses that have to be paid for. But the onboarding is always a bit unique. And then you always get the plan reviewers, of course, and these are becoming cheaper as time has gone on. But big monitors, make sure you can see the plans, which does make it very nice. Big tables. You'll see in one of Mike's presentations, one of his reviewers even has a gaming chair, which is pretty nice. I need to put in for one of those, but not sure how you get one, but we'll figure that point out. But I think then in terms of setting up the process and setting up standards for submittals, one thing that you don't want to have is plans that come in that aren't flattened, that have all these behind the scenes codes in them that will then just screw up your ability to process these plans. So I think that's a really big thing to do, and it's kind of the technical jargon stuff, but then once you kind of get your applicant set, if you have repeat applicants over time, it becomes much easier. And I can say that because I don't have to deal with the front lines. Jennifer McDonald from our office does that, and she comes back and has to vent every once in a while when she says, this person just can't get it right, and she struggles on a daily basis, to make sure that people are submitting the plans right. So that way it makes us plan reviewers' jobs much easier. So kudos to her, because again, she takes on a lot of this and making sure all the submittals are correct. And that kind of goes to the point of educating your customers. One of the big things is some of your, let's say, older or some of your more seasoned engineers or architects, when you tell them that you only accept digital and you will not accept paper, they look at you kind of, with the dog head tilt and say, what do you mean? And so some of you have probably experienced that as well. But you can coach them through the process, you educate them through the process, and hopefully eventually, it'll become a little bit easier for them as well. So again, obviously, when you take this on, you have to determine what types of permits are handled through Bluebeam in the PZ&E process. We are fully digital. So the only thing that we will take paper every once in a while is the stray Historic District Commission permit. That is a very minor permit, just for maybe a small alteration. Otherwise, everything we take in is fully digital. We don't want paper because ultimately, for whatever reason, it still collects on my desk. And those here can attest to that, and I don't necessarily like that. But again, if it's digital, I don't have to deal with it on my desk. So creating those standards for online submittals, again, this kind of gets into the technical stuff. I don't want to get into too much of this because it really gets boring. But in terms of, one, creating what needs to be on the permit and what needs to be in through the submittal that you get digitally. But then in terms of the technical, the naming conventions, making sure all the viewports are out of the document, a bunch of different technical things that Bluebeam will help walk you through when you onboard it. This kind of gets into some of those standards. Again, flattening the image, removing the viewports, page size. You want to make sure that all the pages are uniform, that they're all in the same direction. In this day and age, it's amazing how many submittals come in and they still have, oh, well, here's a 24 by 36 sheet. Here's an 11 by 17 sheet. Here's a sheet that's landscape, one that's vertical. you want to make sure that you're trying to keep those things to a minimum and make sure everything is standardized. It just helps with the reviewing process, so that way you're not having to rescale drawings midstream, mid-review, that you're not having to reorientate yourself as part of the review. And again, your front staff, the great people that they are usually the people that take the brunt of that, working with the applicants. As trivial as it may seem, it does really help out with the process. And one of the biggest things for Bluebeam is consistency in the number of pages and the sequencing of number of pages. And we'll get to that in 1 second. If any of you use the overlay or the compare functions in Bluebeam, the number of pages and the page order really makes a difference. So for our online planning process, it's basically the same, right? I mean, all the information is the same. It's just how you intake it. You really need to make sure that your submittal guidelines are followed. Through PZ&E, those plans are then distributed to all the plan reviewers. And again, that's all cataloged in PZ&E, which again is a side set or a subset of BSNA, the standard process that everybody knows. Not sure how many people online have PZ&E. It's becoming more standardized now. And then in terms of the back end of the process, once everyone's done with their plan reviews, then your front staff or yourself as the main plan reviewer then shuts down that review process, so that way no one can make additional comments. Those plans are brought back into PZ&E and then shot out to the applicants with correspondence, again, all being cataloged, all being verified. So that way if someone comes back and says, well, you never sent me those plan review comments, we can go back and say, yep, at 12:05 on a Tuesday, we sent them to X, Y, and Z persons as part of your application. So and one of the important things is also making sure that your documents are locked. You don't want people being able to go back in, just like with a PDF, making sure that those documents are fully locked and fully secured, so that way no changes can be made. So that way there's no indecision in terms of what's being requested by the city. Some of these I'll kind of go through, but make sure that you're over communicating with your applicants. That's the biggest thing that we find. So while some people may say, boy, this is overdoing it, but we send them links to everything. We send this out every time we talk to an applicant. Here's the information you need to submit. So that way they have it all right in front of them, easily hyperlinked to all the information that they need. Again, typically once you have your repeat customers, once you quote unquote train them in terms of what the review process is, then at that point, hopefully it becomes a little bit easier. And I hate to say it, but most people say you never have a favorite kid or whatever the case is. We can say that as planners, we do have favorite applicants, and those are the ones that make the submittal process the easier. To do all this, you have to create your account. That standard kind of BSNA stuff, PZ&E works the same way, so I'll kind of hop through that. But when you send out your plan for distribution, this is the kind of standardized email you get. So all your reviewers will get this. In terms of joining a session, everything's called a session within Bluebeam. If you don't use projects, we use sessions here for planning. But that way people can enter right into the plan review, get it logged into their system, so that way they know it's in their queue. You can also monitor who's in the session and who's not. So that way you can say like, hey, engineering, legal team, we noticed you haven't entered into the session yet. Those reviews are due in a couple days. You think you might be able to hop in there and get it done, not to call out that department, but it's a random department that came to head. But anyway, so in terms of one of the other things I do want to comment on is that once you do send out plans for a session, once those reviewers do start, it's very difficult, if not impossible, then to add plans or make changes to those plans. Sometimes you'll have an applicant obviously call in and say, you know what, I forgot that photometric sheet. Can I just slip it in? It becomes very difficult to do that because then you're changing the plan set and folks might already have their comments in there. And then again, it's very difficult to do. So you want to make sure that initial intake, you're making sure that all the plans are there, all the sheet sets are there, that you want to have reviewed, that the applicant wants to have reviewed moving forward. And again, making sure that in our entire team, these are all of our plan reviewers that review plans on a regular basis in a simultaneous environment. We're also trying to bring in our outside consultants, our environmental consultants, to use Bluebeam as well. So again, that way there is no staff report, there is no report that has to be sent to an applicant. It's all on the sheet set. Color coding it, making sure everyone knows exactly who to contact and who to blame for when those bad comments come back. And so that way they can contact those people directly. When we stamp our plans, each reviewer has their contact information on the stamp. You can see it here on this sheet towards the bottom. Again, everyone stamps their plans with standardized stamps. So that way, again, contact information is all there. You can see what their result was. You can see what their commentary is in terms of when you go deeper into the sheet set. This is just the cover sheet, but again, making sure everyone knows exactly who reviewed the plans, what the outcome was. And here, obviously, as you kind of go through this, you can show exactly what you want to see. This one required a lot of planning commission modifications. So we were able to highlight those sections that needed modifications. And that way, even planning commissioners, when they get the sheet set, they know exactly, what the issues are, where they're at, what we're telling them. And that way they have a good idea, a good understanding of when that plan comes to them, what they need to do for it. The compared documents, I'm not sure how many people have utilized this. This one didn't turn out all too well in full disclosure, and you can work with the sensitivity of it. But this basically, when you overlay two different sets, so an early version versus the latest reviewed or the latest submitted set, Bluebeam will go through and highlight exactly what's changed on that document. There was so many changes on this one, I think it just got confused and literally highlighted the entire thing. But one of the better ones that I like is overlay. So the red versus the green, and I realize we're in the middle of May here, probably shouldn't have used Christmas colors, but the red and the green are two different versions of this plan. Again, in terms of the green drawing is the revised prints, the red drawing is the original prints. Obviously here you can see with the green the number of trees that were added to Rochester Road frontage and to the property, to the north property line there, just to highlight a couple examples, a couple additional notes that were requested. So again, you can see very easily what's changed on this drawing without even really having to think about it. It almost starts to do the work for you. Just kind of a highlight here of what that section looked like. Again, all the green was the revised drawing portions that was provided with the revised set. On the back end, when the reviewers they not only get the markup copy of the plan set, you can also create this itemized list. So every single comment that goes onto that sheet set then gets cataloged into a PDF that gets attached to the back end of the drawing set. So again, that way, if they want to go through, if they're more of I need a list rather than going through the sheet set kind of review or kind of applicant, they have that as well. Again, we try to provide the information in every way possible. That way it's easily consumable. And then also when you're in the review itself, kind of jumping back a little bit here, each item, each comment that's on those plan sets, you can see exactly who made those comments and on what sheet it is. And when you hit the bottom, and when you have that list at the bottom, you can go directly to that page, directly to that comment, and it'll highlight that comment. So that way, if you want to say, hey, what did engineering say about this? You can pull up the engineering folks and say, click on their comments, see where they're at. And that way you know exactly what's being said while you're doing your review, in case you want to make sure that you're not interfering with anything engineering may want. In terms of a tool chest, so it allows you to do a tool chest for standardized comments, standardized stamps. So that way, if there's something that you use a lot, standard comments, whatever the case is, like our approval stamps, our reviewer stamps, those are all standardized. So you can just click and drop these. And so it makes it very quick, very efficient. So rather than getting out the old ink pad and stamping the paper 23 times for 23 sets, here you just drop in the stamp and you're good to go. Again, as you can create these as you go, there's some standardized ones you get, but again, if you think about, hey, I need a standard comment for this, you create it once, you put it in your tool chest, and then you can use it forever. And this is an example of, again, two of our stamp sets, one for site plan, one for site plan approval. Again, on the back end, when these plans are sent out through BSNA, through PZ&E, you get this fully automated email that comes through. You come up with quick text that says, here's your standard correspondence. Again, that way you have a document or documented when these went out, how they went out, and who they went out to. Some things to think about. As you enter into this process, and if we haven't been using Bluebeam, there is a little bit of a transition to say, making sure that you know exactly what plans are doing when. Mike will show you a quick table setup in BSNA that can help you to do that as well if you're not using tables either. But again, we kind of double our systems. Jennifer from our office tries to keep me in line, making sure I know when my reviews are due. It's beneficial to have everyone on board. It's not an end all be all, but planning and building, let's say, have electronic submissions and engineering doesn't, or one of the other departments doesn't, it becomes very difficult because then applicants are like, well, I'm used to submitting electronic to these departments. Now I got to print out paper and whatever the case is. So it's just better to have a unified system. So try as well as you can to get everybody on board. Make sure everyone gets their session invites. Every once in a while, we have this hiccup in our system where someone will say, I didn't get an invite to that session. So just make sure that everyone's keeping abreast of that the reviews that are out there, that their session invites are good. Non-technical savvy applicants, they're going to fight your system. They're going to they're going to fight submitting electronically. They're going to say, I'm only doing this little tiny thing, and you mean I got to scan all this in and put all this electronically? You got to make some judgment calls here and there, whether you just say, we'll scan it in for you and get it in the system, or if you make them do an electronic plan submittal. The other thing that's also interesting as you kind of get into this, people that know that you do things electronically know that they get the review results, not necessarily all the comments, but the results instantaneously. There's a couple times where we've gotten comments, literally we have hit the result of the plan, and we've gotten calls within minutes to say, I noticed you denied my plan. What do I need to do to resubmit? And we're like, we haven't even sent the plan out yet. So just keep that in mind that people kind of track these things as you kind of go. And then again, as you kind of get into the startup of this, there'll be other things, as like I said, with that gaming share and things, which I'm still trying to figure out how to get. But that your reviewers want the monitors get bigger, TV screens, even whatever the case is, new computers to process all this. But those are some of the things to kind of think about as you start up the Bluebeam process and the review process. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mike to handle the building side of things.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Bizenko. I am the building director for the city of Rochester Hills. And what I wanted to mention to start off first is, Chris, if you need a gaming chair, I'll keep an eye on Marketplace for you.
Thank you.
Here they're pretty comfortable. But anyway, City of Rochester Hills, our building department actually consists of three big divisions. It's obviously the building department, our ordinance, as well as facilities. And the reason I mention it is because ordinance does have a factor in our plan review process as well on the residential end. So we do share our electronic plan review documents with more than just the building plan reviewers within the department. There's another division that also utilizes it. Right here is just an overall snapshot of our permitting process, I guess our workflow. And one thing about BSNA, and we're fortunate here in Rochester Hills, is to have a permit, our supervisor that is actually well versed in computers. She holds her master's degree in computers. And so she gets into the BSNA and Bluebeam, and she can manipulate and recreate workflows to adjust to changing times, and that's one thing that's been very beneficial, because we've had to make changes through the past couple of years that I've been here. Shortage of staff, recreating our plan review processes, redeveloping in what I look at as being a big cumbersome project. Actually is pretty quick and simple for someone who really knows what they're doing with the BSNA, and so Chitra does a phenomenal job recreating that, and as we find errors, we make adjustments. So, but one thing that I wanted to mention is building permit plan reviews for projects, and on most cases we can actually perform those reviews at the same time the site plan is going. There are some occasions that we have to hold off if there's a lot going on with the site plan. But we try to encourage simultaneous reviews that we can provide information back to the applicant, understanding that we can also put a prerequisite in BSNA that make sure that a permit does not get issued in error without the site plan being signed off on. And everything is actually done through email. In our plan review process, each trade will look at the plans. But until the building review is complete, nothing gets communicated to the applicant. This way we don't have people trying to submit partial revisions of plans and just totally muddies up the water. We've had that before in the past, and that's some of the changes we have made. Right here is the workflow. how does Rochester Hills, how do you get to the plan review process? Applying for a permit online can be done 24/7, right through our website. And then the part of the workflow is it goes into a queue, and then the permit techs will, the next day they come in, will go through that queue and make sure that all the information is proper, applications are correct, licenses are in place if need be, and then it gets entered into the plan review process. One thing that we recently changed within the building department is we created a preliminary plan review step in it. So yes, we added a step to a process that we're trying to be more efficient. But what that has done is it's taken those plans that get submitted, and we have a checklist that we go through to make sure all the documents are there. If it's a new building, structural designs and calculation or something that would typically get caught at the end of the review are now picked up at the beginning. So a little bit of one extra step has actually improved our turnaround time by over 30%. So everything, it's working. Payment online, and then once payment's done, all the approved plans do get sent back to the applicant. And then obviously scheduling inspections are all done throughout the website as well. But also we have real-time inspection results available from the field inspectors using their field computers. So, and that itself has a little bit of a challenge because some people aren't comfortable with the field computers quite yet, but it's a work in progress in that. And here's Jay. He's one of our full-time plan examiners, and yes, he's the one that has the gaming chair. He actually got that from a Christmas gift from his son because he spent so much time at work for quite a few years, and I have not caught him sleeping, so I don't think it's quite as comfortable as Chris thinks it is. But one thing to notice on this particular slide here is the stamp in the middle of the slide has different colors, and different colors on it indicate who it is. Building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing all have their separate colors. So if there's something the applicant needs to look for in mechanical, they will look for the green comments in the pages. It has actually really simplified in any of the reviews or questions. So that alone has been very helpful. Just simple things like, the color coding. As you can imagine with electronic, like Chris had mentioned, how do you keep track of it? Because you don't have that paper on the wall that's checking off where every project is. What we created is a plan review table. So if you're a plan reviewer, and everybody in the building department has their own tables, when a project comes in and it's gone through the preliminary plan review, at that point it gets assigned to the appropriate trades for review. And then in there we also have the date it was received, but more importantly, we always look at the due date to make sure we meet within our 10 to 15 business day review time frame that is ultimately our goal. That's one of our performance goals, and it's important to maintain those goals and not exceed that time frame, because it's part of our accreditation that we hold here in the city of Rochester Hills through AICP. In the event somebody forgets about a plan that's in their table, they will get a reminder email that says, hey, you got your plan review is coming due. Don't forget about it. Basically just giving them that little reminder that you have some work to do. Currently, the building department, actually, Chris talked about Bluebeam sessions. Bluebeam sessions gives the ability to have multiple people look at the plan at the same time. We are now transitioning to the sessions from projects because we're finding that now in the summertime, people are taking time off and things of that. Right now, we want people to be able to look at the whole plan. If everybody looks at the plan at one time, it actually increases our efficiency. So right now, fire department, who's clearly not at City Hall, can look at the plan while our engineering and the building department are all looking at it. So we have to retrain some of the staff because it's a little bit different from the project end, and I really think the sessions is the way to go so that everybody gets their hands in it at the same time, and no one's waiting for another trade to finish it. knowing that the building review cannot be signed off till the very end. Another thing that we've actually incorporated into the BSNA is virtual inspections, and virtual inspections became a hot topic during the COVID era. And through the years, the past couple of years, we've really seen a big uptick in technology for virtual inspections. And here's an example of a virtual inspection that took place first thing in the morning before the inspector actually had his first cup of coffee. And what that is, in this particular case, he's looking at a re-inspect of some fire stopping that was missing, or it could have been a label on a piece of equipment that wasn't on the site at the time. Understanding that virtual inspections aren't for every inspection. You still need to get your hands on things. You still need to be out there. You can't. Not every inspection qualifies for virtual inspections, but it's actually growing in popularity. And right now, we just entered into a new agreement with a new software program for virtual inspections through, it's called Blitz, which is going to give us the capabilities of drone interaction with virtual inspections. Then we can populate that information and attach it to the actual permit. I think Chris is probably more excited about the whole drone thing because of stuff that he wants to use it for. So we'll see how that comes out. That's long term, but at least we have that capabilities in there. And technology, as it gets better, prices are coming down. So this one, when we were in between our software programs for virtual, we had a lot of people that were wanting to know why, because they get used to it. And a lot of roof work that we don't have to go back up for re-inspects. It's very beneficial. The electronic plan review, obviously these are the top 6 advantages, but I wanted to point out a few of the hot ones that we really found that are great is online inspections, virtual inspections, and real-time results. We try to provide that because that's our customer service department. Our customers expect some type of service, and now it's there, and we want to be able to provide that higher level of service that other communities may not. But the number 6 item, working remotely, when we get really busy due to vacations and we're short-staffed, if an inspector or a plan reviewer has to do some plan reviews for whether it's a residential project or commercial, they have the ability of logging in at home when they have to do a plan review. We do allow that, but it's on a case-by-case basis, but it's that work-life balance. In the busy times of the summer when we're getting hit with over 100 inspections a day, remote work is always on the topic of discussion because we need to get reviews done. So the electronic plan review has quite a few advantages. Like Chris mentioned, we're pretty much all electronic, and in the building department, we tracked it that we do 5% paper. And the reason we do 5% paper is we have those projects that we take applications for. It could be parking lot work, maintenance permit, special events permit, food truck licensing, because we license food trucks through ordinance, and change of occupancy. Those people still come in and bring us an application. Are we going to ever change it? I don't. Sometimes it's easier just to take the paperwork in, scan it, attach it to the permit, and then move it on. They're coming here anyways. Why send them? Why turn them away? So we are at that 5% threshold, which, yeah, it's going to probably go down maybe 1% more, but I don't expect it to ever go 100%. And then on our website, we have a variety of development guides that other communities obviously are using as well. They reference this, but so if anybody has any questions on any projects or residents have concerns, they can go right to our website. So at this time, I understand we're going to take questions at the end.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Yep, we're gonna have to get Ann Arbor a few minutes here too as well. So thank you for that presentation. And Hank, you're up, and you can begin sharing your screen as well.
Hello, good afternoon. Can someone confirm that my audio is working?
Yep, you're good.
Great. So luckily for uh, our audience, we also use Bluebeam, so you have a great introduction not only to what working in that regard for the city of Rochester Hills, but also in Ann Arbor. As was mentioned earlier, my name is St. Kelley. I am the Deputy Planning Manager. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm joined also by our Building and Rental Services Manager, Lisha Turner-Tolbert, as well as Anna Ostendorp in our IT team. Quick survey of some things that we'll cover. Our transition to this software, which is recent as of 2022, some aspects of site plan projects processing, customizations that we have in our software, our public interface for building permits, what the back office, as we call it, looks like, the internal staff portal, and then just some other features, strengths, and weaknesses. The city of Ann Arbor accepted paper plans as well until we transitioned to our current system. As I mentioned, in about mid-year 2022, I joined the city personally in November of 2022. So this was fully launching into reality as I was joining the team here. And before that, we used for many years, a software called Trackit, which we were no longer able to continue with because the company was sunsetting the software, much to the chagrin of some staff. So we went all in and went live, starting with our clerk's department. This gave some residents and staff early exposure with the system. And then we bought EnerGov. That is what we refer to as the kind of back office name of the system. Stream is our public facing system, which is a separate purchase. It's a website. I'll show you these things. And then Bluebeam, which is the same as our colleagues in Rochester Hills. In hindsight, we might have just started with our back office system and then gradually introduced online and Bluebeam reviews, but that's not how it went. We had to do a lot of iterative drills with staff while working with actual applications in live. One of the best practices that we heard again and again was that you're as strong as your user testing. This is challenging. We had staff and vendor turnover throughout the launch. We're still just the little city that could in some ways. We have the staff of a city that is our size, and people are assigned to different projects. So being all hands on deck to do the required user testing, it is definitely a commitment and a challenge. You have to make some serious budgeting of staff time to make that work and go well. And then we've made changes to our land development process after the software was live. This was very time intensive, required a lot of patience. It still does. One thing that, we sort of realized is that the software doesn't create, the software doesn't create a process, and it doesn't come with an off-the-shelf process. You have to recreate all of your systems within it. And so you have to understand those very well, how they work across your different service areas. And that can take a lot of process mapping and also, internal work, because if you want to change them, it's a really good time to do that. But that introduces more complications in time. So what does our volume look like since we have gone live in our first year from the 1st March to March 2023, 15,452 applications processed, median process time 17 days. Then we went to 25,238 in our second year. And from last year, March to this year, March, sort of similar, 24,000, 25,000 applications. Our median process time did jump a little bit, but this is because our larger projects, such as our civil construction plans, which we're waiting for to start to be fully processed within our new system, they took some time to catch up. As it can take time from approval, the site plan approval, to the submittal, to the approval of those plans. And so now we are becoming sort of fully online with our life cycle of land development within the new software. I wanted to show a case, a real case in our software of what this looks like, and I'm going to ask for help again if folks can see my screen in a second. But we start with a pre-submittal for site plan specifically. So talking about a site plan project, we ask that customers submit a pre-submittal case, and we don't let them apply a la carte to, self-service to a site plan. We tried that at first, and we found that a lot of people were applying to the wrong case. They didn't know actually what they were required to do. Am I a site plan for city council? Am I a site plan for planning commission? Is this a revision X? Is this a revision Y? And what we decided to do was to create this screen. They go through this formal meeting with us, which is also part of our defined process in our zoning code and our unified development code. And then after that, staff unlock the correct application for the development team to participate in for site plan projects. So the planner would unlock the correct case, they'll check the fees details, and then they'll route for review. We also have pre-populated reviewers depending on the type of case that our IT specialist helps us with, tweaking those. And we also do have the ability to add additional reviewers as needed, depending on the features of the particular project. So let me show a screen of what this looks like. Can folks see?
Yep, looks good.
Great. Okay, thank you. So this is what a case looks like in our software. I will share, this is the particular case that I wanted to show you today. So here is the city of Ann Arbor, our downtown. We have this project that is just on the outside of downtown. We've had a lot of development in this South University, south of campus area. It is a topic that is informing a lot of our current comprehensive plan discussions. If you are not aware, we are in the process of adopting a new comprehensive plan at the moment. So this address is 721 South Forest. It was a planned unit development. And so this is our landing screen for, this is what I see when I log into our quote unquote back office. I can see some recent cases. I can see current, different links and resources. There's ways for me to see what is assigned to me, what is assigned to my staff. For example, I can see these review coordinator tasks by the name. I can explore a lot of different things through this interface, but I have pre-navigated to this particular case for us for today's discussion, and I'll just walk through what this looks like a little bit. So actually, I'm going to launch our PROJ. So this is a page called a PROJ, or a project page, which will load in just a moment, that corrals a lot of different things for us internally as well as the customer. So these are the related cases associated with this project. And actually this particular project might have started before we started to screen our projects behind the pre-sub. So I was looking for the pre-sub to see where it was, but this might have applied directly before we introduced that feature. As I said, there have been a lot of iterations, so there are a lot of things that are changing on the fly. That's one of them. That's fine. So I have this pulled up in the other screen, but you can also see they have civil construction plans. They have their foundation permits. They have building permits, soil grading, right of way, all the way on to things that they're currently working on with mechanical and so forth. So one thing that we do to help our reviewers to keep things in one place is that even though the site plan, the final approved site plan, is within the unique permit for, or I'm sorry, the unique plan for the site plan, our staff just re-upload the final approved site plan, supplemental regulations for the planned unit development in this particular case, and also a recorded development agreement that might be associated with the project. We just duplicate those, put them in a helpful place for other people who are working on permits that are different than the planning team. All right, so hopefully everybody is following along. This is the internal view of one of our permits. We have a details tab that has information on the level of review, the current status. This is something that we have a lot of customizations around. This will auto pull from a geo rule, the council ward, and then this tells me that there is a project associated with this particular plan, who it is assigned to, and then I have some helpful dates in the description. There are a lot of other things in the sidebar, but one thing of note that I will point out, in addition to, our fees, which can be manually adjusted, files, and the assigned reviewer for planning is our workflow. And this is where a lot of the tracking comes into place. Who has reviewed what, when it was due, when it was completed, if it's still outstanding, and those sorts of things. And we go through multiple versions of what that looks like, and those can be tracked. That versioning can be tracked after the fact to understand which comments accrued to which review. And we can create new ones as needed if we need special reviews. So this is the customer-facing portal. So this is a separate investment that the city made. Again, it was launched at the same time. It's called Stream. So when we refer to our software with customers, we refer them to Stream. It's stream.a2gov.org. And if you are logged in, then you would have the ability to see your personal applications that are associated with your username and all of those sorts of things. But you can also, as a resident or as an interested party, come in and do a record search. So I went ahead and I did a record search for this project number. I could have also looked it up by the address. I could have looked it up by a couple of other things. And this is what that same project page looks like. You can see there's an enormous investment in this particular project. And I can see sort of a slightly less detailed version of all of the things that were available on my internal page. So this is what somebody from the public would see. If I were an applicant and I were logged in, then I would have additional tabs here that would allow me to apply for new cases that may have been unlocked by staff. It would allow me to see invoice holds. It would allow me to see many other features. There are a lot of moving pieces with plans that happen before they enter EnterGov, whether they are concept meetings, whether they are related, maybe. Yeah, I'll just say that there's a lot of project activity that happens sometimes in the lead up to an official submittal. And so one of the ways that the primary way that our team tracks that, and planners are the quarterback for projects, they're the project managers for their projects, is through this tool called Trello. It is a project management tool, and we divide this into our project lifecycle. So we start with our concepts. I have a series of labels that allows us to filter by the planner. I have 5 plan review staff on my team who are looking at site plans. So if it starts as a concept, I can see that, and then it would move to official pre-sub, then it should be in EnerGov at this point. Once it has been submitted, we unlock the site plan, then we move it here, scheduled for planning commission. If it is a city council project, and then some of our closeout steps, moving on to site compliance and eventually done. That is one tool that I use to supplement things that I can't always see very cleanly in the software, because it is pretty big. And I also have this customization tool from, thank you, Jim. I have this customized tool called Superset that comes from our IT team. There are a series of screens in this dashboard, and I'm able to see for a particular site plan if there are items overdue, who the reviewer is that might be overdue, that sort of thing. I also, in our weekly team meetings, to help keep on top of the full workload, will ask staff, do you have an escalation for an overdue review? So there are a lot of things that we have to build in as kind of a total approach of managing that reach far beyond the software. So as much as it would be nice that this could be the only tool that we use and the only screen that we look at, I have found that that is just not the case. And there's a lot of work outside, human coordination and other software coordination that has to happen to help supplement what goes on inside of EnerGov. Some of the customizations that we have inside of the software are that we have automated emails throughout the application process. We have parcel alerts to notify reviewers of activity on particular parcels. As new applications come in, our content of our email changes. For example, if a case is tied to a PROJ, they might receive a different automated email. We use holds and conditions as needed. Those, if they are applied to a project page, then they're inherited by all of the associated cases. That really helps us if, for example, somebody has an unpaid invoice, or if there's something that is important for staff awareness across multiple different types of permits. And some other workflows that we've been able to customize. And I'm going to hand this over to Lisha at this point to walk through her side of the tool.
Thank you, Hank. So my name is Lisha Turner Tolbert, and I am the Building and Rental Special Services Manager. Been with the city about 16 years, and I've been with this service area for the entire time. So we've gone over most of the slides that I have to the screenshots that I have, which was our introduction to Stream and our online interface and how it looks, how you can get into it, and then just what the customer sees on or what they can see on their side once they get into a permit or an address as they are searching through their dashboard. So I'm not going to go too far into that. I'm just going to kind of go into some of the pros and cons on the building side of the software. So some of the pros that we have is that the public can create and manage their dashboard online. So this is new for us as far as complete and total online permitting. So they go on there and they can create a permit. They can apply for a permit at any time from anywhere, seeing that this is a web-based product. And the public has full access to the permitting and parcel data. That alone has decreased our staff time for fulfilling FOIAs because they can access our public records at any time. And we had the same feature in our previous software, which was Track It. We had that same feature, but this gives you a little bit more detail as there are more tabs that are available. They can search fees, they can search things like that. So it gives them more access to public records. it is also a real-time distribution, so people can get permits, certificate of occupancies and things like that, and their attachments are online and readily accessible to them. So they're not waiting on us to send them a permit in the mail, or they're not waiting for us to send them something via email or anything like that. They can just go on and retrieve those and print them. The inspection application that our field inspectors use is called IG Inspect. It is a iOS software base, and we use iPads in the field. They can also, though, because this is a web base, they can also use their laptops, but we primarily use our iPads with IG Inspect because they have checklists and things like that that they can access through IG Inspect. So anything that happens on their inspections in the field, those are uploaded to the stream system. So it's readily available for the public so they can get inspection information, results, and reports pretty real time. Invoices and fees are paid online, which is great. That is another big feat that before we got this software, we had lots of payments that were coming via mail. So we were processing a lot of mailed in payments, and we also had a lot of counteraction where people were coming to actually pay for the permits and their invoices and things in person. So that is also reduced our staff time at the counter. We've got a reduction in counter waits. And so with that, we can allocate staff to other duties that need to be done because we don't have the backup of processing of payments. Since the software has launched, we've noticed that we've had about a 15% increase in intake since the launch. Some of the cons of this, though, in creating this and having this software, some of the cons have been that we have a lot of contractors that have been traditionally very used to what I call hand holding, and they were used to just dropping off paper applications. Not so much our developer group, but more our contractor group would drop off applications and pretty much wait for us to process their stuff, and we would call them, they could come pick it up, or we could email it to them. And so when we switched over, there was a huge struggle for the contractors in that respect. They also struggle very much with correcting or picking the correct applications. So on stream, when you go in and you go to apply, you'll see a list of applications that you can apply for. We have separated them and put them into buckets of what we call work classes. So you may have a building residential permit with a work class of alt remodel. And a lot of contractors it was a lot of confusion as to which application to actually pull for the work they were trying to do. Okay.
Hi, Lisha. We're almost at
Yes.
11 o'clock, and so if we could, just kind of cover the high level aspects, and then we'll get into the question and answers. Thanks.
Yep. So Hank already went over what we call the back office. And so again, I'll just go into our pros and cons. And basically for staff, it's just real-time visibility. It's real-time visibility for both us and the public. So whatever is done out in the field or whatever is done in the back office, the field can see. And again, I'm not going to go through the details of the slides, but some of the cons of this, I think, is that the workflow itself, you have to have good, solid business practices because you can set a workflow and the activity can be set in the priority level of what comes first and what comes after that. So if you want to stop, if you want to have an inspection created, or if you want to have an inspection or a certain inspection done before the other, those priorities have to be clearly defined and set. And I think the other con with this is that we did not have defined processes, business processes, when we were working with the cross-functional team. So working with planning, engineering, things like that. And we struggle a lot on timing and setting timing for reviews. And so that kind of confuses the public in some respect.
Thank you, Lisha. Briefly, we, as I mentioned, also have Bluebeam integration that allows for multi-department reviews. We can have outside reviewers. A final markup is provided to the applicant on conclusion of their review cycle that can be used for not just site plans, but many other permits that we have throughout the city. The stream website I covered, we can do extensive geo rules for things like, is this in a floodplain? Is this in a historic district? Do we have sometime reviewers that trigger upon a particular feature? Email automations, we can automatically flip application status based on review results. And we can also manage things like compliance. So this just happened actually in a case the other day. A contractor certification was expired and we received an automatic alert and they were asked to re-upload their information to our system. This is a highly configurable system, but that's a strength and a weakness. Sometimes there are a lot of clicks to finish your tasks. Occasionally, there are slow save processes. Some challenges exist for our user friendliness, and then we just have to have a lot of maintenance from and high touch from our IT team to help with some of managing all of those records, processes, application troubleshooting, etc. That's it for us. Thank you.
All right, excellent presentations. We do have a number of questions for both communities, so let me get right into them. Are there any standardized BS&A reports that can be run to track the status and number of plans that are in the sessions? This would be for Rochester Hills.
Answer to your question is we do run reports. We run them every week. It gives us a report of how many plan reviews are in the queue that are left, how many plan reviews each individual are actually have done. And then I can go into BS&A at any time and see what is left, what has not been reviewed. But yeah, we can create a report for pretty much anything we want to through BS&A. So,
Okay.
But we do run them weekly.
Excellent. Does the applicant have to buy the software as well, or does the link allow them to make changes and resubmit plans?
Since any revisions have to be taken care of typically by an architect, most architectural firms use Bluebeam, so and they have to make the changes to the plans. And if they're not using Bluebeam, they're using another software program. And those have to be done by the architect of record.
Okay, excellent. We currently use a chart to make sure we review each applicable zoning ordinance standard when reviewing site plans. How do your reviewers make sure that all zoning standards are met and are checked off if you aren't preparing a review chart or a letter?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that's one of the things that we've talked about internally here at the city. So we've toyed with the idea of inserting charts right into the site plan review. We're still tweaking what that might look like. But at this point, it's literally just going through the review standards and then just being methodical about your review in terms of going through. So basically, if the review comment is there, it means that the standard's not met. Lots of times we reference the actual section, but otherwise we are taking a look at whether a chart should just be inserted right into Bluebeam, and that could be a standardized kind of stamp that's just filled in or modified.
Okay, this is for both communities. I see great advantages of going digital, but even with offline backups, redundant computers, ransomware insurance, etc., I can also see a hack that will attack our country's municipalities to wipe out access to these documents. It may not happen, or it may, but someday all records may be wiped out with systems that we cannot yet comprehend. I was able to access my public records on my house and microfiche from the 50s with no problems. Comments on the security measures that you both take in that regard?
I'm gonna tag in our IT.
Yeah, so speaking for IT for City of Ann Arbor, all of our servers are getting backed up on a regular basis. So I think that that's pretty standard for any municipality IT department. So I'd encourage you to check in with your infrastructure team. But we have, yeah, lots of backups in place to make sure that our servers are not going to, even if they get hacked or compromised in any way, we can wipe it and then revert it back to a prior version.
Okay. Rochester Hills, anything to add on that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Our process is much the same, and obviously things coming in, for things to get quarantined is pretty common.
Yeah.
In our daily operations. So then we just make sure that the file is good or not. We let IT know whether they can release it or not.
Okay. For Rochester Hills, how do you set up and enforce the departments to use their assigned color code and blue beam? Is it just a communicated standard operating procedure, or did they import toolboxes to users? And if so, how do you ensure that they're using their correct toolbox?
So yes, they do have their own imported toolbox, which has the color code built right in. We've never had someone really go rogue, I guess, in terms of using a different color. I guess it's possible, but we've had pretty good compliance in terms of the 8 reviewers that do it. But like I said, it's done through standardized tool chests that are brought in.
Okay. For Ann Arbor, can anyone with an account see any record or only their individual submissions?
I can take that one too, if you like. So you can visit, if you want, stream.a2gov.org right away. And without even having a login, we have a search screen where you can search for any of our public records, or you can start at the map screen and search by parcel or address and see the records on that parcel or address. And everyone can see anything that we have not locked down. So the 2 categories of things that we might lock down would be code cases are not publicly visible. So just as a whole, code cases are not searchable by anybody in Stream. And then depending on how we have flagged a file attachment. So file attachments can either be visible to the public, visible only to case contacts, or in which case you have to be logged in and a contact on the case, or visible only internally to staff and not online at all.
Okay, excellent. Question is for Hank. Is Ann Arbor's planning process fully digitized?
There are very few things that happen infrequently, which we have not yet migrated to Stream and EnterGov. But it is almost all the way, I would say 90% at this point. We do not receive paper plans. We do not receive paper applications or anything that I can recall right now. So to the extent possible, and we are really inching close to 100.
Okay. See, what was for both communities, what was, if any, resistance from the elected officials and or city management in investing in the required software and training?
Lisha, I might ask you to chime in on that one since it was before my time in the city, if you recall, or maybe Anna.
There was no resistance from our elected officials. They were pleased that we were going to an online system. It was something that our community had been asking for several years. So the investment and the move was accepted, and because the building department is basically the last step, and we are the C of O issuance, it fell primarily on the building department and our construction fund that paid for the initial uh, implementation of the software. So we got very little resistance.
Okay. Rochester Hills?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of how you sell it, right? I think it's making sure that you're really portraying how efficient and the system is going to better how the city reacts to its customers. Here in Rochester Hills, we're very proud of our customer service. And that's how this kind of got labeled and kind of framed when it went to council for the initial investment was this is going to provide a better product. This is going to provide better feedback to quote unquote our customers, the applicants. And so anything that we can do to do that within reason is usually something that our city council and our mayor ultimately want to do to keep that customer satisfaction at the highest level possible.
Okay. I will note that Hank has posted the link to the stream program at Ann Arbor in your chat. And then final question for Rochester, do any of your contractors have experience with BSNA online inspection scheduling versus an IVR system?
We've had some challenges with that, and one thing we implemented 2 years ago is we actually put a computer right at our counter that when contractors come in, they can do. We step them through the process, so it's a training and process. You know, it's constantly there's constantly those ones that just need to be taught how to use it. But the IVR system has not been used here in Rochester Hills for probably I'd say close to 8-10 years. So the the .NET inspection requests have been done this way for many years. So it's a work in progress, but everyone's adapted.
Okay. We did just get one last question here for Ann Arbor. What does the process time include on your application tracking?
What are like our default review timelines?
I think it's referring to, you indicated the process timing on that one slide. And the question is, what does process time include?
In that data poll, so when
Oh,
Hank
okay, the median
shared,
review time.
when Hank shared their screen and was showing our superset dashboards, which is our city dashboarding business business analytics tool, that links to our EnerGov SQL data polls. And we have two different ways that we'll pull those metrics. And one would be just review turnaround time, which is like the plan review solo, but there might be admin steps or sub permits or inspections. And that timeline wouldn't be included in review turnaround time. The metrics that Hank shared is all the way from application received until the plan was complete, the plan or permit completed. So that was like full.
Overall time.
Right. So the metrics would look different if we were just looking at review turnaround time. That's much quicker. And then if we were going to be including all the way to finalize for like building permits, that would be much longer. So you do need to we have to be a little bit careful when we are pulling metrics for any department to be very clear what they're looking for.
Okay, excellent. And then I see Hank has posted applications for planning since the launch of EnerGov and Stream in the chat for you to take a look at as well. That's the end of the questions, Ryan. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So just really wanted to thank everyone, for joining us today. And also thank you to our presenters, and for providing their insights and expertise. Just a reminder, we have another upcoming planners gathering on June 26th, where we'll take a walk through local woodland and wetland ordinances. Thanks for joining us today. Have a wonderful day, everyone.